Hello there, and welcome to the Anzisha Effect podcast. My name is Didi Onwu, and I work for the Anzisha Prize, telling stories of young entrepreneurs on the continent of Africa. In 2019, I had the opportunity to visit Uganda to see some aspiring entrepreneurs who were in the running to join the Anzisha Fellowship Program. Now, I'd never been to Uganda, but I'd heard some amazing things about it. From the bustling entrepreneurship scene to the local cuisine, Uganda was all about showing out what it truly means to be the pearl of Africa. While there, I met up with Noah Walakira, a 2014 Anzisha fellow who's making waves in the textile industry. In this episode, I talked to Noah about his journey as a young entrepreneur, from navigating a predominantly female industry, I am mad at that, to balancing university and running a business. Noah's trajectory is littered with moments of resilience and offers a glimpse into life as an entrepreneur and how he leaps from surviving to thriving. Hi, Noah.
Hi, Didi.
How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
Good, thanks. Oh, no, I'm so glad.
Okay.
Thanks for giving up your
Yes,
second evening.
So happy to.
Please, could you introduce yourself and tell everybody what business you run?
Thank you so much. I'm called Walakira, and I run a business called Namirembe Sweater Makers here in Uganda, in Kampala. I am a young entrepreneur, and I started into entrepreneurship when I was 16 years, and it's been an interesting journey where I have been learning along as I'm also doing most of these things. I didn't know much of entrepreneurship when I started off, but along the way I've learned a lot of things, and I've applied some of the things I've been learning on this journey. I currently have a team of fellow employees, which is up to 20 people currently, and they are working into producing sweaters, uniforms for companies, knitting, sewing, and we've also launched things around doing customized clothing for people and for designers.
Right, Noah. So textile industry, you're making uniforms and everything. And so I'm going to jog your memory back a little bit. You said you started at the age of 16. So how did you start? How did you have the understanding of entrepreneurship? Tell me a little bit more about that.
To be realistic, I didn't know even if I was an entrepreneur. I didn't even know the term entrepreneurship when I started off. So it started way back when I was 16, like I said, around 2017. Where I learned how to knit from my grandmother. So when I started knitting, I saw how my grandmother was knitting and selling some of the things she was doing. And she was doing it in a very casual way, like it wasn't something serious about, but she would knit in her free time. So I learned it in my primary 7 vacation. Afterwards, I came back to Kampala, and then I started high school. But in the process, I would also start knitting, and I was knitting because I had learned the skill. I knew it was a hand skill then, so I would use my hand knit and then sell some of the things I was doing for mothers who had like young babies, and I would make simple things for babies.
Right.
Then a nursery school came up saying, "Can you make for our nursery children?" And I would knit, but this was I could not make as many. But that's how I set up with business, and then I later on saved up to buy a machine. We started making most of them. So when I was doing hand knitting, I was only taking 3 weeks to finish one sweater. But now after getting the machine, it took me 30 minutes to finish a full sweater. So I started out that way. And that's how I knew that, okay, this is something that could help me make money and support me in my school.
And so what was your parents thinking when you were, knitting the school uniforms and sort of selling and to the nursery school? What sort of support did they give you, or were they a bit like, Noah, what are you doing?
So I think for support, I think giving me a free space to do what I want, I think is the best support they gave me. But they did not they saw it was it seemed like a joke, and I also didn't know how serious it would get. But after trying it out and then seeing that, okay, this thing is getting serious. Some nursery school had very few students. I think there were around I think 15 or so. So they were it was a small number. And I tried to do it as I also studying. So they did not see it take most of my time or intercepting with any of my home activities. So they did not see any hindrance in it. And the support they gave me is to leave me do what I was doing.
That's so interesting, because I think like you mentioned, you didn't have an understanding of entrepreneurship. And I think in the African context, sometimes a lot of parents don't understand what entrepreneurship is. It's something that you do after everything has failed, right? So they'll push you more into the traditional pathways of, becoming a doctor or an engineer like that. So it must have been really good for you to have that freedom for you to explore what you could do,
Definitely. And because it was also a skill that I'd learned from my grandmother, so it was something that was acceptable. Like, it was not odd or something new. So it was something that they would say that, okay, he learned this when he was with the grandmother, and then he's doing this, and then can do it good. And he's making some little money to support himself in school, and that was good. Yeah.
So you started off with one nursery school, and for people who don't know, actually, Noah joined Anzisha in 2014, right? And you were about 21. So when you started, you started 16, and then up until the age of 21. How did the business sort of evolve to get you to that level of being a potential Anzisha fellow?
So it took time, and it took a lot of ups and downs. I had to save, and that is something I think that I also learned from my parents, saving. And it's something that I knew, okay, if I could save some money, so they would give me pocket money for school. I used to study in a day school, and it was really, really little money. But I used to put this money down, and also making the money I was making from the knitting with hands, I would also save that money. Then I also learned ways of how to get through, like to buy things cheaply. I could buy again from wholesalers, and I managed to save saving, not beyond like saving even on my expenditure, so that I could spend less, but in the end have enough coming in. So that way I managed to make money to buy one machine. The machine I bought at first was a very small machine, and it wasn't in a good shape, but it was a second-hand machine. It wasn't in a good shape, but I had a good deal with it, that the person who sold me the machine taught me how to use it. Most of the times now we teach people, and it's quite expensive. It's also a cost to teach people, but I had that deal where I could buy the machine but also learn from how to operate it. And again, from that, now work became much easier, and I discovered that actually I could work on many nursery schools.
The textile industry is like supposedly female dominated, so how did you sort of deal with not only being young but also being a young boy learning knitting and all of that stuff?
Exactly, and I used that to my advantage, because at first people were shunning away from this industry, especially boys, thinking that, okay, this is a girly kind of hobby or kind of a work. But then I used that advantage, because now everyone will be surprised to see, oh, there is a boy who can actually do this. Can they deliver? And you deliver something nicer than, oh, if actually boys can do it, and they even do something good. So I use that to my advantage, instead of taking on the narrative of people thinking that, okay, this is about a girly hobby, and having that thing clogging my mind and stopping me from doing business. So I looked forward to seeing it grow, and I saw a vision of it that did not stop me to own these conversations around me, and who would like look down on what I was doing. So that's how I managed to handle to see that I overcome that.
Now, I know you started the business and then you went into university. So firstly, why did you decide to go into university, and how did you balance the business while you were at university? Because I understand you went to university in Mauritius, if I'm not mistaken, or yeah.
Yes, I went to Mauritius for university, and that was 3 years after I left. I finished my high school diploma. So it was a decision I took after I was way involved in business, and I had sunk myself into business. So my university decision, I wanted to go to university, and I needed to please my parents. Finishing off with high school wasn't easy, because I had to work and pay school fees. By high school, I was covering my school fees from the business. And it was kind of difficult, because you have to concentrate. I was doing a kind of intense subjects, which we call it chemistry, physics, biology. And they needed me to be there. They needed me to put in as much time. So I had to cut off some of the time for business, but I also knew this is where I was getting school fees. So it was a tough moment for me.
So what was the most sort of difficult thing about transitioning back into the business full time?
I saw that as I was in high school, I gave more time to school, and the business lagged a bit. So I saw the same thing when I came back, that business had lagged a bit. And I also had a big challenge transitioning from work to university. And one of the advantages, what helped me do that is I was far away from my business. So it helped me concentrate at school.
So you went to University of Mauritius and your business is operating in Uganda. I'm guessing now you've like unintentionally you have to like relinquish that control and trust your team to carry the business. So how did you build that trust with your employees and your colleagues for you to actually leave the business? You know what I mean? What was your process of building that trust, really?
True. So for me, it happened. I got to know that I was admitted and I'm going to go to university 6 months ahead.
Yeah.
So that's what I knew I was working with. And I said, okay, how can I start preparing to make sure by the time I'm gone, business is still thriving? I brought in more players. I was trying to say, okay, go to this school. Let me not go there. Let me just go and tell them that I've sent someone who is coming on behalf of the company and they can do business with them. They can do everything with them. I started doing that. So I thought it would work effectively. It did for the schools that we managed to reach out to. But then the university called me and told me, Noah, we are calling you 4 months earlier. So that was a rush for me. So I had to put everything together. I just said, you know what, guys, I'll try to call as much as I can. And then I left.
I guess no, it'd be a miss for me not to mention money, right? The money that goes into the business, the money that you make.
Yeah.
So out of curiosity, what did you do with your first paycheck? What did you spend that money on? When you started paying yourself, like what did you do? Tell us.
So I am personally, I enjoy helping out with people. And I've always, because what pushed me to this business was to see like I could help people. I could see people going to school, people getting jobs and getting salaries and getting good money to support themselves. So what I did actually was to support some students in school. I gave a friend of mine money. He had 2 daughters who were studying, and he was telling me, Noah, I want to take them to the village. And to me, I said, the schools in the village are not as good as the schools they're in right now. And he told me, Noah, it's very expensive right now. So I told them, you know what? I have some money on me. Can I support you now? Probably then you can make. Said actually, yes, you can support me now. I won't take them. I'll be in position to save enough money. Only that this season I did not get enough business. So I managed to give him money and he paid for these 2 daughters and they went to school.
No, what? I thought you were going to say
it was fun.
I thought you were going to say I spent a car or so. That is,
I know.
I mean, what a good thing. That's amazing, actually. And I guess speaking of success, that comes with failure, right? So for you, when was the last time you failed and how did you exactly recover from that moment?
Wow, do you mean the last time I failed?
Yeah, that you consider a moment that you failed or failure.
True. I think I would say the first time I failed, because for last time I failed, it's like I'm into something failing very soon. So yeah, but it's because I've tried a lot of things. And one of the things that I think is vivid is when I tried to do poultry business. So I said, okay, to me, it was a business kind of failure where I said, let me try to get some of these profits I've made from Namirembe Sweater Makers and do a poultry, because I learned that poultry was a booming business in Africa. I said I could tap into some good money. Let me do that. So I went into it. I bought the chickens. I started it out. And they all died. Like, I lost the money. And it was a big failure for me, because someone had calculated to me how it's going to be successful, how I'd double my money, how I'd be in position to do a lot of money from it. But I failed. And I learned from it. I learned that, okay, this was not something I knew about, and I didn't have to do business that way. I didn't have to sacrifice Namirembe Sweater Maker income into doing this business.
That's interesting that you, yeah, I guess failure is always part of the journey, right? And I think a lot of young people somewhat deal with impending failure with a lot of fear, but meanwhile, it's like everybody in the world fails at some point, and it's unavoidable. And what matters, I think, the most is how you recover and how you continue. And I think young entrepreneurs have this resilience, especially when you're younger, right? Like you have this thing of like, I'll fail, but I'll start again. Whereas I think as we get older, there's like less leeway for you to make the mistakes or whatever, and I feel like young entrepreneurs have more of that. Oh, okay, I failed. Let's get back onto the train again.
True, and I think that's actually something good. It's something good that you can take to advantage. So when you're young, and I think that's something we should utilize, and when you're just starting out with business, is we have this kind of strength towards fear, towards we have more, and our intuitions are very very clear, I would say, that you're willing to risk as much. You're less calculative, and sometimes calculating and doing lots of these things, sometimes for a business that is still young, is kind of hard and kind of not necessary. You need to take some risks in business, and you need to, when you're starting out. And later on, when you're grown, that's when you know your business and you can do enough calculations and you can do enough serious investments. But when you're starting young, the money is still little. You can make as those kind of mistakes. I think it's okay to risk. It's okay to let that fear out and try to step out and try things out. Yeah.
Thank you, Noah. Oh, it's always so great catching up with you.
It's always fun. It's always fun hearing from you, Didi, and even just saying a hi message from you is always fun. I just laugh. I don't know, I'm a very joyful person, and I'm so happy about that. Like,
so are you.
That's why I didn't even ask what are we going to talk about. No, like I knew with Didi, we shall figure it out. We shall talk whatever comes up. So it is that easy, and I'm so happy about that. You're such a free person.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of The Anzisha Effect. I hope you've learned a lot from Noah and feel inspired to start your own business, or perhaps support a young person who's interested in entrepreneurship. You can keep up to date with all our activities on social media by following @Anzisha Prize.